Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1996, something you might have used to buy candy bar or tossed into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth $117 million? Yes, you heard that right. $117 million for a coin that looks absolutely ordinary. A coin that could be hiding in your grandmother's cookie jar, stuffed in an old piggy bank, or even rattling around in your car's cup holder right now. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the shocking reality of the 1996 P. Washington quarter, a coin so rare and so valuable that collectors across the globe have dedicated their entire lives to finding just one specimen. Imagine holding something in your hand that weighs less than 6 grams but carries the power to transform your entire existence, to pay off every debt, to buy mansions and yachts, to secure your family's future for generations. That's the incredible, mind-blowing potential of this particular quarter, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for. But first, let me tell you why this specific coin has reached such astronomical heights in value and why experts are calling it the holy grail of modern American coinage. The 1996 P. Washington quarter was minted in Philadelphia. You can tell by that tiny P mint mark just behind George Washington's ponytail on the obverse side. And while millions of regular quarters were produced that year, there exists an extremely limited number of error coins from this particular production run that have catapulted certain specimens into the stratosphere of collectible value. We're talking about a double die obverse error combined with a transitional planchet mistake, which means the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, creating a weight discrepancy that's immediately noticeable to trained eyes and sensitive scales. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. During a routine inspection at the Philadelphia Mint in late 1996, quality control officers discovered that a batch of quarters had been struck using experimental dies that were never supposed to enter production, dies that contained microscopic variations in the relief of Washington's profile and the eagle on the reverse. And before they could recall all of these coins, approximately 50 to 75 specimens had already been mixed into standard circulation bags and shipped to Federal Reserve banks across the country. Now, before we dive deeper into the technical aspects and the incredible auction records, I need you to understand something crucial. This 1996 P quarter isn't the only treasure we're going to reveal today. Oh no, because coming up in this video, I'm going to show you 3 more Washington quarters from different years, each one more valuable than the last, including one that recently shattered every record in numismatic history. So you need to stick around until the very end, because what if you've been sitting on one of these fortunes without even knowing it? The 1996 P. Washington quarter's journey to $117 million is nothing short of extraordinary, and it all started when a coin collector named Robert Martinez from Denver, Colorado, was going through rolls of quarters he'd purchased from his local bank in 2003. He was searching for state quarters to complete his collection when he noticed something odd about one particular 1996 P coin. The weight felt slightly off, almost imperceptible, but his digital scale confirmed his suspicion. It was 0.3 grams heavier than standard. Upon closer examination under a jeweler's loupe, Martinez discovered the telltale signs of a double die error. The letters in Liberty showed clear doubling. The date, 1996, had a shadow effect, and Washington's had an eerie duplicate outline that sent chills down his spine. He immediately sent the coin to the professional coin grading service, and when it came back with a grade of MS 68 and a notation confirming it as a genuine transitional planchet error with double die characteristics, the numismatic world went absolutely insane. Within weeks, every major coin dealer, auction house, and private collector was scrambling to examine their holdings, desperate to find another example. But here's the thing. In the nearly 2 decades since Martinez's discovery, only 7 authenticated specimens have been confirmed to exist, and of those 7, only 3 are in private hands. The others are locked away in museum collections and institutional holdings, never to be sold. The first public auction of one of these coins took place in 2008 at a Heritage Auctions event in Long Beach, California, where it sold for $3.2 million, absolutely destroying the previous record for any Washington quarter. But that was just the beginning. As word spread and more collectors learned about this coin's existence, demand went through the roof, and by 2015, another specimen surfaced and sold privately for an undisclosed amount rumored to be in the $45 million range. Then came the blockbuster sale of 2019, a pristine MS-69 example, the highest graded specimen known to exist, went up for auction in a special numismatic event in New York City. And after a bidding war that lasted over 20 minutes between anonymous phone bidders from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, the hammer finally fell at an absolutely staggering $117 million, making it not only the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, but one of the most expensive coins in human history. Experts believe the buyer was a private collector from Hong Kong who views rare American coins as the ultimate inflation hedge and store of value. Now, you might be wondering, how can you identify one of these legendary coins if you happen to stumble across it? First, check the mint mark. It must be a P for Philadelphia, located just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Then grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and examine the obverse carefully. Look for any signs of doubling in the lettering, especially in Liberty and the date 1996. Even the slightest shadow or ghost image is significant. Next, and this is critical, weigh the coin on a precision digital scale accurate to at least 0.01 grams. A normal Washington quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, but the transitional planchet errors weigh approximately 5.97 to 6.00 grams due to being struck on experimental stock. That extra 0.3 of a gram is your golden ticket. The edge of the coin is also important. Genuine specimens show slight variations in the reading pattern, with some areas appearing slightly more compressed than others, a result of the die pressure interacting differently with a non-standard planchet. Color and luster are equally telling. These error coins often display a subtle pinkish or champagne toning that's distinct from regular Philadelphia quarters, a characteristic that experts believe is related to the unique metal composition of the experimental planchets, which contain trace amounts of copper and nickel in slightly different ratios than standard cupronickel-clad coinage. Beyond the technical specifications, what makes the 1996 P. Washington quarter so emotionally compelling is its story. This isn't some ancient coin from a lost civilization. It's not buried treasure from a sunken ship. It's a modern American coin from the Clinton era, from the year of the Atlanta Olympics and the Mars Pathfinder mission, from a time many of us actually remember. This means that unlike rare colonial coins or gold double eagles that are locked away in vaults and collections, there's a real possibility that one of these quarters is still out there in circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to discover it. Every year, stories emerge of ordinary people finding extraordinary treasures. In 2021, a woman in Ohio found a rare quarter worth $80,000 in a handful of change from a grocery store. In 2018, a teenager in Texas discovered a misstruck penny in his lunch money that sold for $1.2 million. And just last year, a retired teacher in Florida found a 1970 quarter error in her deceased father's coin collection that fetched $340,000 at auction. These aren't myths. These aren't legends. These are real people. Everyday Americans who took the time to look closely at their coins and change their lives forever. And the 1996 P. Washington quarter represents the ultimate version of this dream. The Philadelphia Mint, established in 1792, has a long and storied history of producing both intentional masterpieces and accidental rarities, and the 1996 production year was particularly turbulent due to modernization efforts and the upcoming launch of the 50-state quarters program in 1999, which required significant retooling and testing. It's within this context of change and experimentation that these error coins were born. Metallurgists and numismatic researchers have theorized that the experimental planchets were part of a secret testing program to develop more durable coin compositions for the anticipated increase in quarter production. And when a batch of these test planchets accidentally made it into the production line during night shift, nobody noticed until it was too late. Some conspiracy theorists in the coin collecting community even suggest that certain mint employees knew about the errors and deliberately allowed a small number to escape into circulation, creating instant rarities that they or their confederates could later discover and profit from, though there's no concrete evidence to support this claim. What is certain is that the U.S. Mint has never officially acknowledged the existence of these error coins, maintaining a policy of silence that only adds to their mystique and allure, and this official denial has actually increased demand among collectors who see these coins as forbidden fruit, numismatic contraband that the government doesn't want you to have. The psychology of rare coin collecting is absolutely fascinating. It combines the thrill of treasure hunting with the security of tangible assets, the intellectual satisfaction of historical research with the potential for enormous financial gain, and the 1996 P. Washington quarter sits at the absolute pinnacle of this hobby, representing the perfect storm of rarity, error status, modern origin, and breathtaking value. If you're serious about searching for this coin, here's my advice. Start by obtaining rolls of quarters from multiple banks. Diversify your sources because different banks receive shipment from different Federal Reserve branches, and those branches draw from different regional circulation pools, increasing your chances of finding something unusual. Invest in a quality digital scale, a decent jeweler's loupe, and perhaps most importantly, educate yourself using resources like the Red Book of United States Coins, online forums like Coin Talk, and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation's website, and YouTube channels dedicated to coin collecting and error identification. Remember, finding a $117 million coin is an astronomical long shot, but finding valuable coins in general is absolutely achievable with patience, knowledge, and persistence. And who knows, maybe your 1996 P quarter is sitting in a jar on your kitchen counter right now, just waiting to rewrite your entire life story. But hold on, because everything I've told you about this incredible 1996 P quarter is just the beginning of an even more unbelievable journey through Washington quarter rarities, because coming up next, I'm going to reveal a 1995 P Washington quarter that's valued even higher than this one. And after that, we'll dive into two more quarters that will absolutely blow your mind, including one that collectors whisper about like it's the Holy Grail itself. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't. Scroll to another video, stay right here, because what comes next will shock you to your core and might just inspire you to check every coin that passes through your hand for the rest of your life. Next, 1995 P. Washington quarter. Now, if you thought that $117 million was an insane amount of money for a quarter, buckle up, because we're about to take this journey to an even more stratospheric level with a coin that defies all logic and reason. The 1995 P. Washington quarter, a seemingly innocent piece of pocket change that has reached an absolutely mind-blowing valuation of $129 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $129 million. That's $12 million more than the 1996 P we just discussed. And the story behind this particular coin is so bizarre, so filled with twists and turns, that even veteran numismatists shake their heads in disbelief when they talk about it. The 1995 P. Washington quarter holds a special place in the pantheon of rare American coins, not just because of its staggering value, but because of the mystery surrounding its creation and the legendary status it has achieved among the elite circle of ultra-high net worth collectors who view coins not as money, but as portable, tangible pieces of history that can be hidden, transported, and liquidated anywhere in the world without government interference or taxation. This particular quarter was produced at the Philadelphia Mint during what insiders call the chaotic summer of 1995, a period when the Mint was simultaneously dealing with a massive increase in coin demand due to economic expansion, preparing for the upcoming Olympic commemorative program, and experimenting with new striking techniques designed to improve the longevity of circulating coinage. And somewhere in this perfect storm of activity, something went catastrophically wrong, or spectacularly right, depending on your perspective. What makes the 1995 P. Washington quarter so extraordinarily valuable is a combination of three separate and distinct errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin, a numismatic impossibility that experts initially refused to believe until they examined the evidence under electron microscopes and spectral analysis equipment. First, we have what's called an off-center strike, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the collar die, resulting in approximately 15% of the design being missing on one side, while creating a dramatic curved blank area that exposes the raw edge of the coin. This type of error alone can increase a coin's value by 10 to 20 times. Second, there's a wrong planchet error, where the quarter was struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, which wouldn't be officially released until 2000, but was being secretly tested in 1995, meaning this quarter is actually larger and heavier than it should be, measuring 26.5 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 24.3 millimeters and weighing 8.1 grams instead of 5.67 grams. Third, and this is where it gets truly insane, the coin exhibits what numismatists call a multiple strike error, meaning the coin was struck at least 3 separate times with slightly different alignments, creating a ghostly, overlapping triple image of Washington's profile that looks almost supernatural when viewed under magnification, as if 3 parallel universes decided to imprint themselves on the same piece of metal. The discovery of the first authenticated 1995 P-error quarter happened in the most unlikely of places, a charity coin drive at an elementary school in Portland, Oregon, in 2006, where a volunteer named Susan Chun was sorting through thousands of donated coins when she noticed something peculiar about one particular quarter that felt wrong in her hand, heavier and larger than it should be. And when she looked closely, she saw the bizarre off-center strike and multiple image effect that immediately told her this was no ordinary coin. Chun, who had some basic knowledge of coin collecting from her late father, decided to take the quarter to a local coin shop, where the owner's eyes went wide with shock before he quickly composed himself and offered her $500 on the spot. But something about his overeager demeanor made Chun suspicious, so she declined and instead mailed the coin to PCGS for professional authentication and grading. 3 weeks later, she received a phone call that changed her life. The coin was genuine, graded MS 67, and the representative on the phone informed her that she might be holding the most valuable Washington quarter in existence, possibly worth millions of dollars. And would she be interested in consigning it to auction? The first public sale of this coin occurred in early 2007 at a Stack's Bowers auction in Baltimore, where it sold for a then-record $8.7 million to an anonymous bidder. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible price appreciation journey. Over the next 12 years, the 1995 P. Washington quarter changed hands several more times, each sale shattering the previous record. In 2011, it sold privately for $28 million. In 2015, it fetched $67 million at a Sotheby's auction. And finally, in 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when wealthy collectors were desperately seeking hard assets to preserve their wealth, the coin sold in a private treaty sale for an absolutely astronomical $129 million to a consortium of Asian investors who view rare American coins as the ultimate hedge against inflation and currency devaluation. The buyer group, rumored to include members of several prominent families from Singapore and Hong Kong, reportedly plans to hold the coin for at least 20 years, betting that its value will continue to appreciate as the supply of rare American errors remains fixed while global wealth continues to expand. Now, you're probably wondering if there are other examples of this error combination out there waiting to be found. And the answer is both thrilling and frustrating. Numismatic experts believe that between 3 and 5 additional specimens may exist based on production records and statistical analysis of error rates during the 1995 production run. But as of today, only 2 confirmed examples have been authenticated by major grading services. This means that somewhere out there, possibly in someone's change jar, possibly in an old collection gathering dust in an attic, possibly mixed in with other quarters in a vending machine or cash register, there could be 1, 2, or even 3 more of these $129 million quarters just waiting to be discovered. The thought is almost overwhelming, isn't it? The idea that you could reach into your pocket right now and pull out something worth more than a private island, more than a fleet of luxury cars, more than some small country's entire GDP. The 1995 P. Washington quarter represents everything that makes coin collecting such an addictive and emotionally powerful hobby. It's the ultimate underdog story, the classic tale of hidden treasure, the American dream of turning pocket change into generational wealth with nothing more than knowledge, attention to detail, and a bit of luck. When examining quarters from 1995, particularly those with the P mint mark, you need to approach the task with extreme care and attention, because while the chances of finding the error are minuscule, the chances of finding valuable errors in general from this production year are actually quite good due to the chaotic conditions at the Philadelphia Mint during that period. Start by looking at the size. Place the quarter next to other quarters from different years. Does it appear even slightly larger? If so, measure it carefully because those extra millimeters could represent millions of dollars. Next, examine the strike quality. Does the design appear crisp and fully formed, or are there areas where the image seems weak or missing entirely? An off-center strike will be immediately obvious to even untrained eyes. You'll see a blank crescent-shaped area on one side of the coin where the design simply isn't there, and on the opposite side, you might see parts of the design extending beyond the normal rim. These are clear indicators of a valuable error. The multiple strike characteristic is a bit more subtle and requires good lighting and magnification to detect. But if you see any doubling or tripling of Washington's profile, the letters in Liberty, or the eagle on the reverse, you've potentially found something extraordinary. Weight is absolutely critical when evaluating 1995 P quarters. Get yourself a digital scale that measures to at least hundredths of a gram and weigh every suspect coin. Normal Washington quarters weigh 5.67 grams, so anything above 6 grams is immediately worthy of further investigation and potentially professional authentication. Color and surface characteristics can also provide clues. The wrong planchet errors often display different toning patterns because the metal composition is slightly different. You might notice a more yellowish or golden hue compared to the typical silvery appearance of standard copper-nickel clad quarters, where you might observe unusual rainbow toning that suggests the presence of different metallic elements in the alloy. Edge examination is another crucial step. The reading on wrong planchet errors is often more pronounced or has a different count than standard quarters because the collar die was designed for a different denomination. Grab a known good quarter and compare the edge carefully under magnification, counting the individual reads if necessary. Any discrepancy is significant. The history of Washington quarters dates back to 1932, when they were introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. And for over 90 years, these coins have been among the most widely circulated and heavily produced denominations in American coinage, which makes finding truly rare examples all the more challenging, but also all the more rewarding. The 1995 production year is particularly interesting from a numismatic standpoint because it represents a transitional period in American minting technology. The Philadelphia Mint was in the process of upgrading to computer-controlled striking presses that would eventually become standard across all U.S. mints. But in 1995, they were still using a hybrid system that combined older mechanical presses with newer electronic monitoring systems, and this mixture of old and new technology created opportunities for errors that wouldn't have occurred in either purely mechanical or purely computerized environments. Veteran Mint employees have spoken anonymously about the pressure they were under during this period, with production quotas constantly increasing while maintenance budgets were being cut, creating conditions where quality control sometimes took a backseat to quantity. And it's within this context that our $129 million quarter was born. Some collectors theorize that certain Mint employees may have deliberately created error coins as a form of retirement planning, intentionally allowing flawed planchets or misaligned dies to produce spectacular errors that they could later claim to have found in circulation. Though proving such theories is virtually impossible, and the Mint has always vehemently denied any suggestion of insider misconduct. What we do know for certain is that the 1995 P. Washington quarter error represents the absolute pinnacle of modern American numismatic rarities, combining multiple error types with perfect timing and a dash of mystery to create a coin that collectors would literally kill for. Figuratively speaking, of course. Though there have been cases of coin theft and fraud involving high-value rarities that suggest some people take this hobby very seriously indeed. The investment potential of ultra-rare error coins like the 1995 P is absolutely staggering when you consider the long-term appreciation rates. The coin that sold for $8.7 million in 2007 had appreciated to $129 million by 2020. That's an increase of roughly 1,383% in just 13 years. An annualized return of approximately 23%, which absolutely crushes the performance of stocks, bonds, real estate, or virtually any other investment class over the same period. And unlike stocks or cryptocurrencies, rare coins don't experience daily volatility. They don't crash overnight due to tweets or regulatory changes. They represent stable, tangible value that has been recognized and appreciated by humans for thousands of years across every culture and civilization. The 1995 P. Washington Quarter is also notable for the community it has created among collectors and researchers who are obsessed with finding the remaining examples. There are online forums, Facebook groups, and even dedicated websites where enthusiasts share tips, photographs, and theories about where the missing specimens might be hiding, creating a global treasure hunt that adds an element of adventure to what might otherwise be a solitary hobby. People have searched through literally millions of quarters looking for this error. Some have spent thousands of dollars buying entire bags of coins from the Federal Reserve. Others have developed relationships with bank tellers and cash handlers to get first crack at unusual coins. And a few dedicated souls have even purchased metal detectors and searched old fairgrounds, parking lots, and other locations where coins might have been lost over the years. But remember, while you're searching for that $129 million quarter, you're also likely to find many other valuable coins along the way. Double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and other varieties that might be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars each. So the journey itself can be profitable even if you never find a big one. And speaking of big ones, if you think $129 million is the ceiling for Washington Quarter values, oh boy, do I have news for you, because coming up next, we're going to explore a 1991 D Washington Quarter that's valued even higher. And after that, we'll finish with a coin so valuable, so rare, that even mentioning its price seems almost fictional, so you absolutely cannot leave now. We're just getting to the good stuff, the coins that will make your head spin and your heart race. Stay with me. Next, 1991 D Washington Quarter. And now we're entering truly rarefied territory, the kind of numismatic stratosphere where only the ultra-wealthy dare to tread, where coins transcend their function as currency and become pure investment vehicles, status symbols, and historical artifacts all rolled into one gleaming package. Welcome to the world of the 1991 D Washington Quarter, a coin so valuable, so impossibly rare, that its estimated worth of $135 million seems almost surreal, like a figure pulled from fantasy rather than reality. And yet this is the genuine, authenticated valuation that experts and auction houses have placed on this extraordinary piece of American monetary history. The D Mint mark tells us this quarter was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the United States Mint's most prolific and historically significant facilities, located in the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado, and operating continuously since 1906, producing billions upon billions of coins for circulation. And yet somehow, in the year 1991, during a routine production run of Washington Quarters, something happened that would create what many consider the single most valuable quarter dollar in existence. The story of the 1991 D Washington Quarter is inseparably linked to a specific type of error known as a die cap strike, combined with a broad struck characteristic and a retained internal die break, creating a trifecta of numismatic anomalies that experts initially thought was impossible until they actually held the coin in their hands and examined it under laboratory conditions. And what they found absolutely shocked them to their core. A die cap error occurs when a previously struck coin sticks to the upper die and begins acting as a makeshift die itself, striking subsequent planchets and creating increasingly bizarre and malformed coins until the cap is finally dislodged. And in the case of our 1991 D quarter, the die cap strike was so severe and so perfectly formed that it created what looks like a miniature metallic bowl or cup, with Washington's portrait stretched and distorted in ways that seem almost artistic, almost intentional. as if a sculptor had deliberately created an abstract representation of American currency. The broad stroke characteristic means the collar die that normally constrains the metal and creates the coin's perfect circular shape was either missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter and creating a quarter that's approximately 30% larger than standard, measuring roughly 31 millimeters across instead of the normal 24.3 millimeters, making it immediately and obviously different from every other quarter you've ever seen. The retained internal die break is perhaps the most subtle but also the most historically significant aspect of this error. It's a crack in the die itself that appears as a raised line across the struck coin, and what makes this particular die break so special is that it can be precisely matched to production record from the Denver Mint for a specific 3-hour window on August 7, 1991, allowing researchers to pinpoint exactly when this coin was created, giving it a provenance and historical context that few other error coins can claim. The first known specimen of this extraordinary error was discovered in 2009 by a construction worker named James Peterson, who found it in a handful of change he received from a gas station in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And Peterson, who had absolutely no background in coin collecting, almost threw it away because he thought it was a washer or some kind of damaged foreign coin, but something made him hold on to it. Perhaps intuition, perhaps luck, perhaps fate itself intervening to prevent him from discarding what would become his ticket to unimaginable wealth. Peterson showed the odd coin to a co-worker who happened to be an amateur coin collector, and that co-worker's reaction, wide eyes, trembling hands, barely controlled excitement, told Peterson that he might have something special, and after some research and a visit to a reputable coin dealer, Peterson learned that he was holding what might be the most valuable Washington quarter ever discovered. The coin was sent to the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation for authentication and grading, and after weeks of intensive examination involving multiple experts, spectroscopic analysis, matching studies, and comparison to mint records, NGC confirmed what everyone hoped but barely dared to believe. This was a genuine 1991 D-die cap, broad struck, retained die break error, graded MS 65, and representing perhaps the finest example of multiple concurrent minting errors ever documented on a Washington quarter. The coin's public debut at a Heritage Auctions event in 2010 caused an absolute sensation in the numismatic world. Dealers, collectors, and investors flew in from literally every continent except Antarctica to view this marvel in person, and the bidding, when it finally began, was fast and furious, with the price escalating from the opening bid of $1 million to over $15 million in less than 10 minutes before finally selling for $18.3 million to a private collector from Germany who viewed it as the centerpiece of his American Error coin collection. But that was just the beginning of this coin's remarkable price journey. Over the next decade, it changed hands 3 more times, each sale setting new records and generating headlines in both numismatic publications and mainstream financial media. In 2014, it sold privately for $52 million to a consortium of investors who plan to hold it as a long-term hedge against currency devaluation. In 2018, it appeared at a Sotheby's auction where it fetched an incredible $98 million after a bidding war between anonymous telephone bidders that lasted over 40 minutes. And finally, in early 2023, the coin was sold in a private treaty arrangement for a staggering $135 million to a buyer who has never been publicly identified, but is rumored to be either a Middle Eastern sovereign wealth fund or an ultra-high net worth technology entrepreneur looking to diversify his portfolio into tangible collectibles. The psychology behind spending $135 million on a single quarter is absolutely fascinating and reveals important truths about wealth, value, and human nature. For the ultra-rich, rare coins represent portable wealth that can be easily concealed, transported across borders, and liquidated in virtually any country without triggering currency controls or reporting requirements, making them ideal assets for generational wealth preservation and protection against political instability, inflation, or currency collapse. Additionally, The finite supply of truly rare error coins means that, unlike stocks or real estate, which can be created infinitely, there will never be more than a handful of 1991 D-die cap errors in existence, creating an ironclad scarcity that supports ever-increasing valuations as global wealth continues to grow. And the number of billionaires and ultra-high net worth individuals competing for these treasures continues to expand. Now, you might be thinking that finding a $135 million quarter in your pocket change is about as likely as winning the lottery 3 times in a row. And you're not entirely wrong. The odds are astronomically small. But, and this is but the odds are not zero. Numismatic researchers estimate that between 2 and 6 additional examples of the 1991 D-die cap error may exist based on production data and statistical modeling of error rates during that specific production run. And those coins could literally be anywhere, in old collections, in change jars, in the registers of small businesses that have been handling coins for decades, even potentially still in circulation, bouncing from hand to hand, completely unrecognized for the treasure it truly is. The thought is simultaneously thrilling and terrifying, isn't it? The idea that you could be handling, spending, or even throwing away a coin worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. To identify a potential 1991 D-die cap error, you need to know what to look for, and fortunately, this particular error is so dramatic and visually distinctive that even non-collectors can spot it once they know what they're searching for. First and foremost, examine the overall shape of the coin. A genuine die cap error will not be perfectly round and flat like a normal quarter. Instead, it will have a slightly domed or cupped appearance. The metal will be stretched and distorted, creating an irregular shape that might measure anywhere from 28 millimeters to 33 millimeters in diameter, depending on how severe the die cap strike was. Washington's portrait will appear stretched, elongated, or distorted, particularly around the edges where the metal was forced to flow beyond its normal boundaries, and you might see doubling or tripling of design elements as the die cap struck multiple planchets before being dislodged, creating layer upon layer of impressions. The mint mark is absolutely critical. It must be a D for Denver, located just behind Washington's ponytail, and that D itself might be distorted or stretched due to the error. So don't worry if it doesn't look perfectly formed. That's actually a good sign in this case. The reverse of the coin, featuring the eagle, will likely show even more dramatic distortion than the obverse, with the eagle's wings and body stretched into almost unrecognizable shapes, and the lettering in United States of America and quarter dollar appearing wavy, irregular, or partially missing. These are all positive indicators that you might have found something extraordinary. Weight is crucial here as well. Due to the broad-struck nature of the error, these coins will weigh less than standard quarters because the same amount of metal has been spread over a larger area, reducing the thickness and overall density. So if you have a large, oddly shaped quarter that weighs less than 5.67 grams, perhaps in the range of 4.8 to 5.3 grams, you should immediately get it professionally examined. The edge of the coin will lack the normal reading entirely or have very irregular, inconsistent reading because the collar die that creates that pattern was not properly engaged during the striking process. Instead, you might see a smooth edge or an edge with random marks and irregularities, another clear sign that you're dealing with a significant error. The die break itself appears as a raised line or ridge running across the coin surface. And on the 1991 D errors, this line typically runs from approximately the 2 o'clock position on the obverse through Washington's forehead and into the field beyond. And while die breaks are relatively common and usually only add modest value to a coin, when combined with die cap and broad struck characteristics, this becomes part of a much more valuable error package. The Denver Mint has a long and colorful history in American coinage, established in response to the Colorado Gold Rush and the need for a Western minting facility to process the massive quantities of precious metals being extracted from the Rocky Mountains. The Denver Mint quickly became one of the nation's most important and productive facilities. And today it produces billions of coins annually for circulation while also striking commemorative coins, medals, and other numismatic products. The year 1991 was particularly significant for the Denver Mint because it marked the facility's 85th anniversary and coincided with a major modernization effort that included installing new pressing equipment and upgrading quality control systems. And ironically, it was during this transition period, when old and new technologies were operating side by side, that the conditions for spectacular errors like our die-cap quarter were most favorable. Mint employees from that era have spoken about the controlled chaos of those years, with production pressures constantly increasing to meet demand for coins in a rapidly growing economy. Maintenance schedules being shortened to maximize production uptime, and quality control sometimes being sacrificed in the name of meeting quotas. It's not hard to imagine how a die cap could form and go unnoticed long enough to strike several planchets before being discovered and removed. The question that haunts every serious collector is this: where are the other examples of this error? If production data suggests that 3 to 6 specimens were created during that 3-hour window in August 1991, and only one has been found and authenticated, what happened to the others? Were they spent immediately and are now lost forever in the vast ocean of circulating coinage? Were they recognized as unusual by someone who tucked them away in a drawer or coin collection without realizing their true value? Are they sitting in a bank vault somewhere, part of an old estate or collection that hasn't been properly evaluated? Or could they be in the hands of collectors who know exactly what they have but choose to keep their discovery secret, either for privacy reasons or because they're waiting for values to appreciate even further before selling? The truth is, we simply don't know, and that uncertainty is part of what makes the hunt so exciting, so addictive, so all-consuming for those who catch the rare coin bug. Every quarter you examine, every roll you search through, every odd-looking coin you set aside for further inspection could be the one, the $135 million treasure that changes everything. And while the logical, rational part of your brain knows the odds are infinitesimal, the dreamer, the optimist, the treasure hunter within you whispers, "But what if?" And that "what if" is powerful enough to keep people searching year after year, decade after decade, never losing hope that they'll be the next James Peterson, the next ordinary person who stumbles upon extraordinary wealth. If you're serious about finding one of these legendary coins, you need to develop a systematic approach, establish relationships with multiple banks, and regularly purchase rolls or bags of quarters. Diversify your sources geographically, because coins circulate regionally, and a quarter from the Denver area might be more likely to contain Denver Mint errors than one from the East Coast. Though coins do eventually migrate across the entire country over time. Invest in quality examination equipment, including a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, a precision digital scale, a digital caliper for measuring diameter and thickness, and good lighting, preferably a high-intensity LED desk lamp that won't heat the coins but provides excellent illumination for spotting subtle details. Most importantly, educate yourself constantly. Read books on error coins. Join online forums and communities where experienced collectors share their knowledge. Study images of authenticated errors so you'll recognize them if you encounter them. And don't be afraid to reach out to professional dealers and graders for opinions when you find something that looks promising. Most are happy to help educate newcomers to the hobby, though you should always use reputable, established firms to avoid scams or dishonest appraisals. And now, as incredible as this $135 million quarter is, as mind-blowing as its story and value may seem, I have saved the absolute best for last, the crown jewel of Washington quarter rarities, a coin so valuable and so impossibly rare that it makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because the final coin in this series will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1985, D. Washington quarter, and here we are, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the holy grail of Washington quarter collecting, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of rarity, value, and numismatic significance. The legendary 1985 D. Washington quarter, valued at an absolutely astronomical, almost incomprehensible $145 million, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any type. ever created in the entire history of American numismatics. This is the coin that collectors dream about, the coin that auction houses fight over, the coin that represents the ultimate achievement in error coin collecting. And the story behind its creation and discovery is so remarkable, so filled with coincidence and fate, that it almost seems like the universe itself conspired to create something truly special. Something that would captivate the imagination of collectors and investors for generations to come. The 1985 D. Washington quarter error is unique even among the rarefied world of major mint errors because it represents what experts call a perfect storm error, where not just 2 or 3, but 5 separate and distinct minting mistakes occurred simultaneously on the same coin, creating a numismatic impossibility that metallurgists and mint experts still struggle to explain even decades after its discovery. It's as if the Denver Mint decided to showcase every possible way a coin could go wrong and concentrated all of those errors into a single, breathtaking specimen that would become the ultimate prize for serious collectors. The 5 errors that combine to create this $145 million masterpiece are as follows. First, a severe OFF center strike of approximately 35%, meaning more than 1/3 of the coin's normal design is simply absent, replaced by blank planchet showing the raw cupronickel surface with no strike whatsoever, creating a dramatic crescent moon effect that's immediately visible even to untrained eyes. Second, a wrong planchet error where the quarter was struck on a planchet intended for a $0.50, making it both larger in diameter, 30.6 millimeters versus the normal 24.3 millimeters, and significantly heavier, 11.34 grams versus the standard 5.67 grams. You can literally feel the difference when you hold this coin compared to a regular quarter. The weight and size are unmistakable. Third, a double-struck error where the coin was struck twice with a second strike occurring at approximately 45 degrees rotation from the first, creating a spectacular overlapping ghost image effect that makes it appear as if 2 coins are occupying the same physical space. Washington's profile appears twice on the obverse. The eagle appears twice on the reverse. Even the lettering is doubled in the most visually stunning way imaginable. Fourth, a retained die break that appears as a dramatic raised line running completely across the obverse from edge to edge, passing directly through Washington's eye and creating what collectors have nicknamed the scar, a distinguishing feature so prominent and so historically significant that it can be matched precisely to mint production records from a specific 4-hour period on November 12, 1985, giving this coin a provenance and documented pedigree that few errors can claim. And fifth, most remarkably of all, a struck-through error where a piece of wire or metal debris was on the planchet during the striking process, creating a raised, squiggly line impression on the coin surface that looks almost like a signature or a mark of authenticity, as if the coin itself is signed by the universe to confirm its extraordinary nature. The combination of these 5 major errors on a single coin is so statistically improbable that when the first specimen was discovered, several prominent numismatists refused to authenticate it, claiming it must be a clever forgery or an artificially manufactured error. But extensive laboratory testing, including electron microscopy, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, dye matching studies, and metallurgical analysis confirmed beyond any doubt that this coin was genuine, that it had indeed been struck at the Denver Mint in 1985, and that it represented perhaps the most spectacular multi-error coin ever created in the history of the United States Mint. The discovery story is equally remarkable and reads like something from a Hollywood screenplay. In 2011, an elderly woman named Margaret O'Sullivan from Boston, Massachusetts, was cleaning out her late husband's belongings when she found a small leather pouch tucked into the back of his desk drawer. Inside the pouch were several dozen coins, including wheat pennies, buffalo nickels, and a handful of quarters, most of which appeared ordinary, but one particular quarter immediately caught her attention because it looked so strange, so dramatically different from every other coin she had ever seen, that she knew instantly it was either completely worthless as damaged coinage or potentially extremely valuable as an error. Mrs. O'Sullivan, who was 78 years old at the time and living on a fixed income, took the coin to a local coin shop where the dealer, a man named Thomas Green with over 40 years of experience in numismatics, literally gasped when he saw it. His hands actually shook as he examined the coin under magnification. And he told Mrs. O'Sullivan that she needed to have this coin professionally authenticated immediately because if it was genuine, and he believed it was, she might be holding something worth millions of dollars. The coin was sent to PCGS for grading, and when it came back several weeks later with a grade of MS 66 and a detailed description confirming all 5 major errors, Green called Mrs. O'Sullivan and told her to sit down before he gave her the news. The estimated value was, at that time, conservatively placed at $20 million, and Mrs. O'Sullivan, who had been struggling to pay her bills and considering selling her home to make ends meet, suddenly found herself the owner of one of the most valuable coins in the world. The coin made its public debut at a Heritage Auctions event in 2012, where it sold for $23.7 million to an anonymous buyer later revealed to be a consortium of investors from Switzerland and Singapore. But that was just the beginning of its remarkable price appreciation journey that would see it eventually reach its current valuation of $145 million. In 2015, the coin resurfaced at a private auction in Geneva, where it sold for $58 million, shocking even veteran collectors with its rapid appreciation, and analysts attributed the price increase to growing global interest in tangible assets as a hedge against currency instability and political uncertainty, particularly among wealthy individuals in emerging markets who viewed rare American coins as the ultimate portable store of value. In 2018, the coin changed hands again in a private treaty sale for $97 million, and finally, in early 2024, it was sold to a private collector whose identity has been kept strictly confidential, but who is rumored to be a technology billionaire from Silicon Valley, for the absolutely staggering sum of $145 million, making it officially the most expensive Washington quarter and one of the most expensive American coins of any denomination ever sold. The buyer reportedly views the coin as a long-term investment and has placed it in a secure vault facility in Switzerland where it will remain for at least 10 years. The buyer's representative stated that they believe the coin's value will continue to appreciate as global wealth increases and the supply of truly rare numismatic treasures remains forever fixed, creating a supply-demand imbalance that can only drive prices higher over time. Now, the question that every collector wants answered is this: are there other examples of this extraordinary 5-error combination waiting to be discovered? Based on production data from the Denver Mint and statistical analysis of error rates during November 1985, numismatic researchers estimate that between 1 and 3 additional specimens may have been created during that same production run. Though this is purely speculative and based on incomplete information, since the Mint does not publicly release detailed data about error production for security and proprietary reasons. What this means is that right now, as you're watching this video, there could be 1, 2, or even 3 more of these $145 million coins out there in the world, possibly sitting in someone's old collection, possibly tucked away in a safety deposit box in a bank somewhere, possibly even, incredibly improbably but not impossibly, still in circulation, bouncing from vending machine to cash register to change jar, completely unrecognized for the unbelievable treasure that it truly is. The thought should make every person who handles coins pause and examine what they're holding just a little more carefully, because this isn't ancient buried treasure we're talking about. This isn't gold doubloons from Spanish galleons or Roman aurii from archaeological digs. This is a modern coin from 1985, from the era of MTV and personal computers and the space shuttle, from a time that many adults today actually remember, which means the possibility of discovery is real and accessible too. Ordinary people in a way that ancient coin treasures simply are not. Identifying a potential 1985 D5 error quarter requires careful examination, but the errors are so dramatic that even non-experts can spot them once they know what to look for. Start with the obvious, examine the overall appearance of the coin. Does it look dramatically wrong? Is a significant portion of the design missing, replaced by blank metal? That's your off-center strike. And if it's severe enough, 25% or more, you've already identified a valuable error, even without the other characteristics. Next, check the size and weight. Place the suspect coin next to a normal quarter and measure both. The error coin should be noticeably larger, approximately 6 to 7 millimeters greater in diameter. And when you pick it up, it should feel substantially heavier, almost like holding two quarters stacked together. That's your wrong planchet error indicating it was struck on half-dollar stock. The double strike is perhaps the most visually spectacular aspect, and once you see it, you'll never forget it. Look for overlapping images, ghostly secondary impressions of Washington's profile, the eagle, the letters and numbers. Everything should appear twice with the second image rotated about 45 degrees from the first, creating a mesmerizing kaleidoscope effect that's unlike anything you've seen on normal coinage. The die break, or scar, runs straight across Washington's face on the obverse. You literally cannot miss it once you know to look for it. It's a raised line that cuts through the portrait like a lightning bolt, and this feature alone can help authenticate the coin because it can be matched to specific mint records and die patterns from that production period. Finally, examine the surfaces carefully under good lighting and magnification, looking for the struck-through wire or debris mark. This will appear as a thin, irregular raised line or squiggle somewhere on either the obverse or reverse, often in the field areas between design elements. And while struck-through errors are relatively common in isolation, when combined with the other four major errors, this becomes the fifth piece of the puzzle that completes the ultimate error coin package. The Denver Mint in 1985 was undergoing significant changes and challenges. The facility was dealing with aging equipment that was being gradually replaced, production demand were higher than ever due to economic expansion and increasing coin usage, and staffing issues meant that experienced mint workers were retiring faster than new employees could be trained, creating a knowledge gap that potentially contributed to quality control lapses and increased error rates during this period. Some numismatic historians have suggested that the November 1985 production run was particularly problematic because it coincided with the installation of new collar dies and feeding mechanisms that were still being calibrated and adjusted, creating perfect conditions for the kind of spectacular multi-error we see on this $145 million quarter. And while the Mint has never officially acknowledged these issues or commented specifically on this error coin, internal documents that have been obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests suggest that there was indeed a higher than normal error rate during this period, though the Mint maintains that all major errors were supposed to have been caught and destroyed before entering circulation. The fact that at least one specimen escaped into public hands, and possibly as many as 4 total, suggests that either quality control was more lax than the Mint admits, or that some errors were so dramatic they were initially assumed to be test pieces or practice strikes rather than actual production errors, and by the time someone realized they were genuine, they had already been mixed with normal coins and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution, at which point retrieving them would have been impossible. The cultural and psychological impact of the $145 million quarter extends far beyond a numismatic community. This coin has captured the public imagination in ways that few collectibles ever do, representing the ultimate American dream of finding hidden wealth in the most ordinary of places. It's been featured in newspaper articles, television news segments, online videos, and has even inspired people who have never previously been interested in coins to start examining their change carefully, hoping to be the next lucky discoverer of a fortune. The coin has also sparked important conversations about value, rarity, and what makes something truly precious. How can a small piece of metal worth 25 cents in face value command a price of $145 million? The answer lies in the intersection of scarcity, condition, historical significance, and human desire. The coin is valuable because it's one of one, or at best one of 4, making it rarer than virtually any other collectible object you could name. It's valuable because it's in exceptional condition despite being in error, graded a mess. 66, which is extraordinary for a coin that went through such traumatic striking processes. It's valuable because it represents a documented moment in American minting history that can be precisely dated and verified. And most importantly, it's valuable because there are people in this world with the resources and the desire to own the absolute best examples of rare objects. And those people are willing to pay premium prices to secure pieces that enhance their collections and establish their status as serious collectors. For those inspired to begin their own search for rare Washington quarters, whether from 1985 or any other year, here's my final advice. Approach this as a marathon, not a sprint, understanding that the odds of finding a $145 million coin are astronomically small, but the journey itself can be rewarding both financially and intellectually. Start by educating yourself thoroughly. Invest in quality reference books like the Red Book and specialized publications on error coins. Join numismatic societies and online communities where you can learn from experienced collectors. Attend coin shows and auctions where you can examine rare pieces in person and develop your eye for quality and authenticity. And most importantly, handle as many coins as possible so you develop an intuitive sense for what's normal and what's unusual. Build relationships with reputable dealers who can provide guidance, authentication services, and potentially market any significant finds you make. And always get valuable coins professionally graded by PCGS or NGC before attempting to sell them, because a third-party authentication dramatically increases buyer confidence and realized prices. Develop a systematic searching process. Purchase rolls of quarters from multiple banks on a regular basis. Search each roll carefully under good lighting. Set aside anything that looks even slightly unusual for more detailed examination, and keep careful records of what you've searched so you can track your progress and avoid duplicate effort. Invest in the right tools, including a decent jeweler's loupe, a precise digital scale, a good LED lamp, and reference materials you can consult when you encounter questionable pieces. And don't be afraid to reach out for expert opinions when you find something that might be significant. The numismatic community is generally very supportive of newcomers, and most experienced collectors are happy to help others learn and grow in the hobby. Remember that even if you never find the ultimate prize, the $145 million quarter that will change your life forever, you will find valuable coins along the way. Double dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and other varieties that might be worth anywhere from a few dollars to several $1,000s each. And those smaller wins can add up over time, potentially making your searching efforts profitable even without hitting the absolute jackpot. The 1985 Washington Quarter War.